Daredevil, Born Again. Waited a long time for this to come out. They were talking about it. They were advertising it. They were showing who was going to be in it. And I was worried that the House of the Mouse was going to take it and crunch down all of the things that made it good on Netflix. Take out all of the cussing, take out all of the violence, take out all of the whatever, all of the adult, and crunch it down to the Mickey Mouse show starring Daredevil. But they did not. They did not. In fact, I think they might have turned the knob up a little bit, which is good. I watched like the first 5 minutes and I was like, meh. Then I was like, give it a few more minutes. I gave it 10 minutes and I was like, oh, okay, I think I see where they're going. And then when it hit about 13 minutes, maybe 15 minutes, I stopped the show. I got up, I went downstairs, I made some popcorn, a nice cold drink, a nice hot sandwich, and I went back upstairs, got in front of the big screen, turned that joint back on and started it from minute number 1. And yeah, it was good. It was real good. You know, in the trailers, they show him throwing his helmet, mask helmet off the side of the building, and it's missing one of the horns. And I'm like, what would make him give up? Kingpin even asks him in a trailer, what made you stop being a vigilante? And he said a line was crossed. So I was like, what would happen to Daredevil to make him do that? Because Daredevil from the comic books is a dude that, he has a lot of problems. Spider-Man has a lot of problems that we would have today. Iron Man has a lot of problems that we would have if we were like billionaires. But Daredevil's problems, everybody's got problems. Daredevil's problems are different, so I figured there's a host of things that could happen in his life that could turn him into a guy that just throws his half of his life away. And something does happen in the very first episode. Brace yourself, because I'm going to mark it, but there's going to be spoilers. Not right now, but in a minute. He meets Heather Glenn in the series. They're diving deeper into the Daredevil mythos, into the Daredevil mythology, into the Daredevil lore. And she's going to come out. She's got some dark stuff that's going to happen. I wonder if they're going to pull all of that into the show when he meets her. And she says her name. I was like, why does that name sound familiar? Why does that name sound familiar? And I'm watching the show, and then all of a sudden it was like, ah! And I remembered. When things happen on the TV shows and in the movies and in the cartoons and stuff, I'm a guy that's been reading the books since forever. I am probably older than I look. And I've been reading the books forever. And when they say something or do something or something happens, I'm like the guy, if you go get your hair cut and you're sitting in the barber shop and the movie, the TV's got the football game on, and there's that one guy that's pointing and he's like, he's not the first one to do that. In 1976, it was, Joe Montana or whatever. And he's screaming out facts at the TV and everybody's looking at him like, yeah, that's Fred. Fred would always know. I'm Fred. If boxing comes on and he's like, no, he fought 57 rounds in 1926. Fred knows. They even make fun of that type of guy. And like the Eddie Murphy movie, Coming to America, where they're all yelling and he's like, I met him, he fought 57 rounds. They make fun. There's always a guy like that at the barbershop that just knows all of the stuff about something. Pop culture is my thing. Comic books, comic books and movies more directly is my thing. So when I'm watching like Spider-Man or Daredevil or whatever, and they introduce somebody or they say something or something happens or there's something on the wall, little things that catch my attention. And I'm like, God. And when they said Heather Glenn, I was like, Heather Glenn, that sounds familiar. Did I go to school with a Heather Glenn? I think a Heather Glenn used to work for me 3 years ago. I was trying to remember what it was, and then it hit me. And I'm wondering what they're going to do with her character. Because if they do in the show what happened in the books, she's probably not going to be around through the whole season. That's a hint. I'm not going to say everything because I want you to see it and enjoy it. But I don't think she's going to be there for a long time. Unless they change some stuff. I mean, Marvel, the MCU is known for taking a good story that has happened in the books and tweaking it. Thanos, snapping his fingers, it caught on. Everybody's like, oh, snap like Thanos. That's not how he activated the power. He snapped just to be a small name for the word Richard, starts with a D. He just snapped just to do that. He doesn't have to snap to use the powers. He just has to want it, to think about it, to desire it, and it happens. But he snapped just to show off. But now they're saying, I gotta get the Hulk is holding his hand. He's like, I gotta snap. And I'm like, that's not, you don't have to, man. You could have just said, bibbity bobbity boo, or you could have just thought about it and it would have just happened. You didn't have to snap your fingers. You already got the gauntlet on your hand. And the gauntlet's not really. I think I'm starting to drift off into other stuff. But as long as you control the stones, you didn't have to have them on the gauntlet. You didn't have to, because other people have had them and they didn't have the gauntlet and still had access to all of the power. But getting back to Daredevil, so when stuff happens, is my point. I recognize it. I'm like, oh. So I saw that and I was very interested. Something that happened in the movie. The Kingpin is going from Kingpin to Wilson Fisk. He's trying to legitimize himself for a host of reasons, but he wants to legitimize himself. He wants to get out of that gangster persona. So there's an episode, there's a scene where he walks to his closet. The Kingpin is almost always in a white suit. He walks to his closet. There's a bunch of suits, and there's a white one. And he's looking at the suits and he's thinking, what am I going to take? And he stops at the white one and then he grabs a black suit. And I was like, okay, so he, in his mind at least, he's not the Kingpin anymore. Vanessa, for some reason, has taken over his crime empire. I don't know. I mean, if you worked at McDonald's and your boss got fired, and his wife just walked in and said, I'll take over, you'd be like, you don't even work here. I mean, we understand you're Fred's wife, but you don't work here. You've never flipped a burger. So I don't understand how the Kingpin's wife just walked up and was like, I'm taking charge. And everybody was cool with it. All of these gangster thugs, criminals, triads, Russian mafia, all of these dudes was like, yeah, okay, all right, yeah, Kingpin's wife. Makes sense. I don't know. Comic books, you've got to suspend belief. But she just steps into his shoes and takes over. So she's a little upset that, when she got with him, she knew he was a dangerous guy. She knew he was a criminal. She knew, what he was, basically. But as she got to know him, she fell deeper in love with him because she loves the Kingpin. She's not in love with Wilson Fisk. She loves the Kingpin, baby, and he don't want to be the Kingpin no more. So they're having problems. They introduced a new character, B.B. Urick, which is Ben Urick's granddaughter, I think she said. So she's in the same thing, but instead of like old school, like when I was coming up, you had the Daily Planet and you had the Daily Bugle. They were newspaper places, people used to read newspapers all the time. You want to know about the news? You turn the TV on late at night, but during the day, you get a newspaper and you read about stuff. So Ben Urick was a newspaper man, but people don't really read the news that much. So they more modernized it with the BB. and BB has a website, and they show her filming, they show her putting it on the web, but they don't really specify if it's like a Twitter account or a YouTube page, or I'm assuming it's a podcast, but I don't know for sure. But she's got her thing, and she goes around interviewing people. So she, I think, is going to be, I think she's going to be important to the story. But they've introduced a lot of characters just really quick. They've got Daredevil. They've got the Kingpin. I'm talking about the action characters. Daredevil, Kingpin. They've got White Tiger. They've mentioned 3 times that he has a mystical amulet because a White Tiger had above normal physical abilities due to this mystical amulet, which was in the comics was a tiger's head and a claw and a paw and a paw. So it's 2 paws and a head, and he eventually gives it to 2 other people, 2 parts of it to other people, and they become the sons of the tiger. And eventually the daughters of the tiger, everybody gets a shot. So they've introduced him. They've talked about his superhuman abilities. They brought back Poindexter. So Bullseye's back, which is kind of cool. I like him as a character because he's psychotic. I don't even know that he realizes he's crazy, but he is out of his mind, which is kind of like the comic books. In the comic books, he's psychotic. He's insane, but he's entertaining in the comic books too, because he talks about killing people while killing people. I mean, he's a good character. He's a good character. And of course, they're going to introduce the Punisher because we saw that in the trailer. So he's coming. And I get the idea that there's going to be more. They mentioned Spider-Man, which was kind of cool. They talk about, people with skulls on their chests going around shooting people, and people with horns on their heads beating people up with sticks. And they talk about a man dressed as a spider. And I was like, well, that's Spider-Man. That's clearly Spider-Man. A man dressed as a spider, Spider-Man. So I'm wondering if that means that the MCU has more control over the Spider-Man character now, or if they're just allowed to mention that he's part of their universe. I'm not sure. But this first episode had lots of violence, lots of action. It had blood shedding, blood splatter. There were people who were finger across the throated. They got they got that Cody Rhodes action, finger across the throat. So that was kind of cool. It was interesting, and the story is good. I don't want to give away a lot until right now. Going to be a little bit of a spoiler. What would make Daredevil give up being Daredevil? I mean, he digs going out in the middle of the night and punching people in the snot box, right in the nose. He digs that, man. But what would make him stop? They unalived Foggy. Wow. Right in the beginning. And he tried, not really, really hard, but he definitely tried to kill Bullseye. And from the comic books, they've tried to kill each other a lot of times. That's his primary. You're introduced into the television show with Kingpin, but Bullseye is pretty much his primary guy. He's fought Bullseye more times than the Kingpin. And the Hand. He's fought the Hand a lot. But he tried to unalive him, and I was like, wow. And he was casual about it. He was just like, boop. And I was like, wow, this is kind of dark. I think I like this. And from what I gather, a lot of people like it, that they kept it so gritty. This is the end of the spoiler. I just wanted to get that one piece out. So I enjoyed Daredevil. I enjoyed Daredevil Born Again. And I enjoyed it so much that I would give Daredevil Born Again 9 bags of popcorn. 9 bags of popcorn, man. Some of the CGI was a little off. I mean, I'm being a perfectionist when I say that because it still was not that bad, but it was just a little off, and it threw me off just slightly, or else I might have said a 10. But 9 bags of popcorn, man. 9 bags of popcorn. That's what I think about that. More importantly, what do you think about that? Now that we had a chance to talk about it, let's talk about it some more in the comments. And as always, if you like the video, if you like the content, subscribe. I'm moving, so a lot of my stuff is in boxes, but that's what I think. And if you think the same way, like, share, and subscribe.
Popcorn Passport.